Gorr and his daughter Love are lost in a desolate desert on a distant world. They have nowhere else to go because they are the last of their kind. Gorr begs his deity Rapu for assistance because starvation is bringing them close to death, but nothing happens. Eventually, Love passes away in her father's arms, and soon after burying her, Gorr hears a voice in a whisper asking for him. Gorr pursues the sound and eventually comes to a freshwater oasis, but not before tripping and cutting his hand on a sword. Then he spots some fruit and starts eating frantically until his deity Rapu, who is just hanging around, chastises him. Gorr informs him that although the land has been destroyed, he still believes in the promised eternal reward. Rapu, on the other hand, chuckles at him and claims that the underdogs were never rewarded. Right now, he's celebrating taking down the most recent wielder of the Necrosword, a blade with a curse that can take down gods. Rapu claims that suffering for him is their goal and that he will receive more in the future, although all of his followers have died for him. When Gorr becomes enraged and rejects his god, Rapu starts strangling him. Abruptly, the Necrosword materializes in Gorr's grasp and instructs him on how to gain immense power, insisting he must destroy every god. Gorr kills Rapu by allowing the curse to take control of his body and swearing to kill the other gods as well. Korg relates the tale of Thor, the thunder god, to a group of extraterrestrials on the planet Indigar. He was brought up as a warrior from an early age and went on to become a legendary hero who frequently saved the world. His true love was a woman from Earth named Jane. After that, Thor lost his home world of Asgard along with his entire family and his powerful hammer Mjolnir. However, he joined the Guardians of the Galaxy, a group of heroes, and they began traveling the universe together to go on absurd adventures after he acquired a new weapon called Stormbreaker. The Guardians are fighting ferociously nearby against intruders that resemble birds. When Thor does show up, the local king tells him that everything was peaceful until their gods were killed. Thor charges into battle and dispatches opponents with ease, hitting them or striking them with lightning. Thor ends the invasion by breaking into the temple and scaling the tower to strike the enemy leader, but not before destroying the temple. On Earth, Jane is receiving treatment at a hospital after learning that she has stage 4 cancer, a fact she has only discussed with 2 close friends. Jane is desperate to find a solution, so she begins researching Asgardian magic and discovers that Mjolnir may be able to help. Valkyrie is the first member of the Asgardian people's new home on Earth. She assumed control after Thor left. Foreign visitors can take tours of New Asgard, which include a stop at the parts of Thor's hammer Mjolnir that are still in place. The sky abruptly darkens and the pieces begin to glow as Jane goes to see it. Returning to Thor, the king gives him 2 enormous screaming goats as a thank you for the assistance. The goats wreak havoc inside the spacecraft as the group departs. After that, the team searches the system for distress signals and is startled to discover a surprising number of them pleading for assistance. It turns out that Gorr, also known as God Butcher, has been murdering gods on thousands of planets. An Asgardian warrior named Lady Sif, who was formerly a member of Thor's team, makes one of these distress calls. Using Stormbreaker, Thor teleports Krog and the goats to where Sif is. They arrive on an icy landscape and find the skeleton of a massive creature that Thor calls the nicest god of all time. Sif, who's not far away, is injured and has lost an arm, but she's well enough to confirm that she followed Gorr here and almost fell into his trap. Once in New Asgard, Gorr uses the Necrosword to summon a horde of monsters and control the shadows. In a matter of seconds, chaos descends upon the city, and flames swiftly spread. When the Valkyrie appears on her Pegasus, she begins using her sword to slay the monsters. Thor soon makes his appearance as well, and he enters the battle as Korg carries Sif to safety. As he and Valkyrie are finishing off several monsters, all of a sudden, a lightning ball appears in the center of the battleground and shoots fast enough to strike the monsters as well. When Thor recognizes its Mjolnir and summons it, the hammer turns away from him and goes to its new owner. Wearing the armor of Thor, this woman wields Mjolnir expertly, splitting it into several parts so it can strike several enemies at once before regaining its original form. Thor is startled to see that it's Jane when the woman removes her helmet. They appeared to have the perfect relationship at first, getting along well and enjoying many happy times together. Thor even asked Mjolnir to swear it would always protect Jane one inebriated night, and the hammer glowed in agreement. But as time went on, their distance increased since Jane was a well-known scientist and Thor was constantly preoccupied with his missions. Jane eventually had enough of the barriers they were building between them and sent Thor a note to end their relationship. Jane wants to focus on taking down the monsters, but Thor wants to talk about the present. Gorr appears to Thor at that very moment, and he starts fighting him with the Necrosword. Gorr pins Thor against a car after they trade blows, and when Thor tries to defend himself, Gorr simply hits him against the car, forcing a monster to hold him down. Then, as Gorr tries to take Stormbreaker, Thor becomes enraged and uses his lightning powers to break free from the monster and push Gorr away. When Thor unleashes lightning upon him, Gorr realizes he is at a disadvantage even though Jane and Valkyrie appear to be supporting him, so he makes the decision to disappear. However, the shadows persist, and they send a horde of monsters into kids' rooms to steal from them. A cage-like creature soon encloses every child in Asgard. Gorr teleports the cage away as Jane and Thor try to follow it. Valkyrie summons all of the Asgardians to a meeting to decide what to do next. Thor returns to the room and starts a new argument, but it is cut short when a floating head materializes. This is Axel, one of the kidnapped magical-eyed kids. He can use this power to enter the cage and project an image of Thor, allowing him to move around and discover where they are. When the illusion ends, Gorr will be the strongest in the Shadow Realm, where the children are, according to Thor, who then returns to inform the others. The group determines that they must go to Omnipotent City, the gathering place for all of Earth's gods. Since Stormbreaker isn't functioning properly, they plan to sail through the Axe's power using a ship drawn by goats. Jane goes to the restroom and says that when she lets go of the transformation, her body displays how ill she is, while Valkyrie receives a ship from an exhibition. Axel tries to reassure the other children about Thor in the meantime so they won't be afraid. When Axel promises that Thor will save them, Gorr reveals that's precisely what he wants. Gorr interrupts them and scares them by killing a small monster. The group dons a variety of disguises to blend in with the locals after arriving in Omnipotent City. Zeus, whom Thor describes as his inspiration, is the one making a major impression, despite the presence of many other amazing gods. It appears that Zeus has no interest in rescuing other gods and their populace, even after Thor warns everyone about Gorr and asks for help. Then, Zeus tells the crowd that Gorr will never be allowed to reach eternity. A very powerful being that resides in the universe's center and is capable of fulfilling wishes for those who call upon it. This means that in order to destroy all the gods at once, Gorr might want to grant his wish. Zeus orders his guards to engage Thor in combat at this point. Thor breaks the chains so he can use them as weapons while the rest of the group charges in to fight. They fight incredibly well together, utilizing all of their fighting abilities, and the guards are vanquished very quickly. Zeus smashes Korg with his thunderbolt in a fit of wrath, turning him to rubble. Subsequently, when Zeus attempts to strike Thor, Thor blocks and launches the thunderbolt back, allowing it to enter Zeus's chest instead. When Thor sees Korg later, he finds that only his face remains alive. After tying Korg's face to her hair and blowing a whistle to summon the goats, the Valkyrie lets the ship through the window. When Valkyrie takes Zeus' thunderbolt, the group is able to flee. Thor shows Jane space dolphins passing by the ship. Taking advantage of the romantic moment, Thor expresses his desire to reunite with her and his continued love for her. Jane is forced to inform him of her cancer. Thor, on the other hand, offers his support and promises that they will handle everything together. After that, they kiss. When they eventually arrive in the Shadow Realm, everything, including themselves, turns black and white. Stormbreaker's rainbow bridge vanishes and the ship lands with a thump on the desolate planet. The cage is nearby but empty, so they enter a building, where Jane discovers some papers containing Gorr's plans. He had intended to bring Thor here to steal Stormbreaker and use its power to open a portal into eternity. Jane rushes to warn the others about the trap and launches Stormbreaker into space to keep it safe. Gorr appears at that moment, and Jane throws Mjolnir at him, but Gorr dodges it and controls the shadows to capture the heroes. They battle Gorr and his shadow monsters once more, but are forced to flee back to New Asgard since Valkyrie and Mighty Thor were both hurt in battle. Before Stormbreaker can be transported across the Bifrost, Gorr steals it. Thor is informed that the effects of Mjolnir are aggravating Foster's cancer, and he urges her to stay behind to recover. Valkyrie is also unable to continue fighting, leaving the Thunderbolt in Thor's possession so that he can fight Gorr again. At the center of the universe, Gorr begins opening Eternity's gate with Stormbreaker. Thor arrives using Thunderbolt and imbues the children with the power of Thor, giving them enough strength to overcome the remaining shadow monsters. Gorr gains the upper hand against Thor. Having sensed his distress, Foster decides to wield Mjolnir again despite her weakened condition and joins the fight through using Valkyrie's winged horse. Thor recovers Stormbreaker and has the children use it to return home, but they could not stop Gorr from entering Eternity. Thor calls out to Gorr and pleads for him to choose love over death as he rushes to Mighty Thor's side. Their love reminded him of the love he had for his daughter, thus deciding to use his wish to resurrect her. Foster soon succumbs to her illness and dies in Thor's arms, vanishing into Valhalla. Thor accepts Gorr's request to take custody of his daughter before he dies from the Necrosword's curse. In the aftermath, a statue of Foster as the Mighty Thor is erected in New Asgard. Lady Sif and King Valkyrie begin training the children in combat, while Korg's body fully regenerates as he seeks to produce an offspring. Thor starts to raise Gorr's daughter as his own, entrusting her with Stormbreaker while he wields Mjolnir into battle. Zeus, still recovering from his injuries in Omnipotent City, sends out his son Hercules to kill Thor. Foster arrives at the gates of Valhalla, where Heimdall welcomes her to the afterlife. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to watch more videos like this.